Right, welcome everyone, and thank you all for your attendance today at the Finance and Performance Committee meeting for September. I'll start the meeting off just by letting everybody know that this meeting has been recorded, so it will be available for public to view at a future date. So once this meeting's finished, so just be aware that the meeting has been recorded and it will be available to the public. Obviously, with COVID restrictions, the amount of people that can be in the room is the reasoning why we can't have media and more than 10 people in this room at any one time. So, welcome, and could I please ask that everyone in the council chambers stand, and I will read the council prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions, and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. Okay, I'll now call for apologies, and I have one recorded for Councillor Panapa, and I believe that is it. I think everybody else is in attendance, either in presence or on Zoom, so could I have someone move that the apologies be accepted? Thank you. Councillor Ash, seconded by His Worship the Mayor. All those in favour? Right. Carried. Thank you. We have no public forum today, and I'll ask everyone to note item 4 on the agenda, the conflict of interest declarations. If there are any conflicts that you'd like to raise now, please raise them. Otherwise, when we're discussing the item, please notify the committee at that time. Okay, confirmation of order of business. It's as listed in the agenda. The only thing not listed in the agenda is my chair's report, which has been tabled and emailed to everybody, and I will bring that into the agenda after the follow-up action items from the previous minutes. Confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. We'll run through those. They start on page 7 of the order paper. If there's any amendments, please raise your hand at that time. So we'll go through page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Are there any amendments required? Sorry, Councillor Carter, you've got your hand waving. At 11:27, we had Tracy leave, and then after it, she's moved 3 things. What page are we on, sorry? We are on page 10. 10. Okay, so there's no resumption when Councillor Hero returned to the meeting. A little confused as to where that time is supposed to be in association with where she's moving and seconding. Councillor Hero, do you recall you left the meeting at 11:27, it's recorded. Was that for a short period of time and then returned, obviously? If you've...
Well, I was just thinking, was this still on Zoom? I wouldn't have thought it would have been for long. I can't remember, but I wouldn't have thought it would be a long period of time. When it says I've left, does it mean that I've just turned off my camera? Because I walk around with my headset on so I can still hear everything. I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember.
At the apologies part of it, you say you're going to be leaving the meeting at 11:30 a.m. So I'm quite sure you did leave the meeting.
What was it?
The question to ask is whether she seconded the meeting, the motion by myself.
Yeah. Do you recall
Oh,
seconding? Do you recall there are a number of items after that time of you being recorded as leaving? Do you recall seconding the motion of His Worship the Mayor in regards with the insurance program?
no, I can't remember. Was it recorded?
No.
No, the meeting wasn't recorded.
Can I just ask that we go back and check our notes? And
Okay.
just look at the, it's probably just where the timing was of her leaving the meeting is probably the issue. It probably can be moved. Yeah.
Okay.
And sorry, just to say that I'm just checking my own diary here. You have so many meetings, and I would have stepped into another. I've got a Te Ranga Tupua Zoom meeting that was scheduled for 11:30, so that's why I would have stepped out of it after reading my diary again.
Okay. Thank you. It may just be where that timing is put in. If you're recorded as doing 3 items shortly after that, and then there's no record after that of any moving or seconding, it may just be a typo error of where that's been placed in the minutes. If we could just perhaps leave these minutes then, can we leave these to confirm where that was, and then would we have an answer before the end of this meeting?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. All right. And if we've got an answer by the end of this meeting as to where that should be recorded, then we will move them as a true and correct record. Is the committee happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. Any further amendments required? If not, okay, we will leave that item on hold for a confirmation, and we will move on to follow-up items and actions from the previous minutes, which is on page 15 of the agenda. Now, I'll take it as read. Is there any comment from staff on any of those follow-up action items? Mr. Toombs.
Thank you. Yeah, I can give an update on the third item on the list on page 15, the QV property sales, which dovetails back onto page 12 of the minutes we were just looking at. So item 10.3, the Mayor queried if his figures took June's new valuations into account. I can confirm the valuations included in the quarterly property sales were the valuations that were given to us in September 2020. So they are the new valuations, yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that.
We can update
So
that.
let's
Close that, yeah.
Let's close that item. Thank you for the update. Any further comments? I'll ask committee members for any comment.
Just one for me. I just note through you, Chair, that there is a couple of items there coming back to the assets and infrastructure agenda to be included. Just looking to make sure that we're all over that to come back to our next assets meeting, because they're both in the assets camp. Thank you.
Sorry, through you,
Yes.
Chair. The reason I raised it was because the graphs, for example, illustrated a very significant lift in property valuations against QV.
Yeah.
And if it had been against the previous QV values, I would have absolutely expected that. But it's surprising just how great the lift is against the latest valuation.
Yeah.
So that's why I raised it. Thank you.
Absolutely right. There's still certainly some significant increases going on. Yeah, it is surprising to see that it is off the current valuations, but that's where the district is heading at the moment in demand. Are there any further items wishing to be raised off that follow-up action report? If not, could I have someone move the reception of the report, please?
Happy to move.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Dalgetty. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Now, added into the agenda is my chair's report, and you should have all received an email copy of that. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read through it. Pretty much just some comments around, unfortunately, the COVID restriction levels that we're in at the moment restrict us to meeting like this, which can be quite challenging to get the feel of the room and have everyone put their point of view across. And but as I've stated there, it is what it is. We're making the best of what facilities we've got available, and I think everyone will certainly be given the opportunity to give their input and have their say. But yeah, we welcome back the round table discussions as soon as possible, as soon as they allow. Also, in my report, I've spoken around the event sponsorship scheme, and it's come back under the guise of the Finance and Performance Committee to assess. But there are also two external assessors that have given their input, and they were previously on the previous assessment group, and their experience I felt was hugely valuable to this event sponsorship scheme and the community initiative scheme. And their names are Michelle Fannin, who's had a huge amount of experience in regards with grant applications and both filling them out and also assessing them on a national basis. And Laurel Campbell, who is also the chairperson of Turakina Community Committee. She also has had a huge amount of experience in regards with these assessments on a national basis and also applications. So it is the will of the chair and hopefully of this committee that we give those two the opportunity to have discussions when we have the event sponsorship scheme and the community initiative scheme. But it would have to come as a recommendation from this committee to allow them to sit at the table and have input in the verbal discussions and round table before we finalise the amounts given. So as chair, I would like to move a recommendation that those, sorry, have you got a question, Kath, before I move?
No, just preempting you and seconding it.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'll get my, sorry.
I've got a recommendation started to that effect in the next item.
Oh, you have?
Still in the chair's report.
Okay, yes, we are still in the chair's report, right? Okay, so we'll move that recommendation into the event sponsorship scheme. Great. All right, thanks. Thank you, Ash. Okay, so that's the comments on my chair's report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Just a question of clarification. You refer to discussion, but does that also carry over to determination? So do they have, are there calculations to be included in the decision-making process, or is it just discussion?
It is determination, and that is my want, to have them to be able to determine, to contribute the final figure as well. So not just discussion, but determination. They have the ability through the Smarty Grants assessment criteria to put a figure in there, and that would be the wish as part of the recommendation. Any further questions? Okay, there being none, I'll move that my chair's report be tabled. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Duncan. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Right. Thank you. Moving on to item 8 and reports for decision. And we get to 8.1, which is the event sponsorship scheme and consideration of applications. Now, hopefully all of the committee has had the opportunity to go through the Smarty Grants process and carry out the assessments and put in their assessments and determinations through that process. And we have a spreadsheet available which will provide what each figure was put to that, but also some comments from the assessors on each application. What I'll do is we'll bring that table up on screen. Is everyone able to see that? Can we show the screen there, and if we could get the camera perhaps onto the screen so that everyone can actually see. And has everyone online got the ability to read that screen? Councillor Ash.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick query. Is any of this subject to any privacy stuff at all? Like, is any discussion around funding any of these events require any?
It's a public meeting, so as such, no, this discussion is available publicly. So no, that this is a transparent process. So no, there won't be any privacy afforded to the applicants.
Nice, thank you.
Councillor Hero, you had your hand up. Can you bring up what's on screen?
Yes, I can. I can see what's on screen, but I've got a question.
Okay.
Regarding. So I wasn't part of the Well, no, sorry. It's the first time that I've been part of the Smarty Grants. That whole process. So I'd like to know that in the past, when this was first, when that Smarty Grant, when that group of councillors had been put together, was there any type of hui that was had to discuss how it would be done, or people would be going specifically off what the application was, the applications themselves? So I'm asking whether or not there was discussion that was held before for new people that hadn't ever been part of the process in the past. Was there ever any type of hui that was held as type of kind of like an induction into it?
Yes, there was a training, basically a training process on how to utilise the Smarty Grants program for previous users. Now, if you haven't used that before, sorry, I would have expected that would have been afforded to you. Have you not used Smarty Grants before for any other process?
No,
Okay.
I haven't. But no, what I'm asking about is actually about the assessment side of it. I'm asking about whether or not there had been any type of training around the assessment of it when it comes to the. I haven't accessed, well, not through council Smarty Grants, but I'm not talking about the applying for it. I'm talking about being part of the selection, the assessment panel of it.
Okay. No, there hasn't been any training other than how to utilise the Smarty Grants program, and then the discussion of the hui has taken place after the assessments have been made.
Okay, thank you.
In this format.
Okay.
Councillor Duncan.
Yes, just to say that I can see the screen, but I can't read it.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll go through each application and I'll just ask everyone to have some comment around the table, and then we'll speak to, you've already put your figures that you were wishing to give towards each application. After listening to the discussion, if you want to change those figures, that gives you the ability to at that time. If you're happy to stick with what you've put in your assessment, then that's what you do. And what we do is add up those figures, and we'll come to an average, and then the committee makes the determination as to what we will finally fund. Councillor Duncan, Councillor Dalgety, I'll come to you after Councillor Duncan.
Yes, thank you. Can you just remind us what the total amount is? Because I don't have my assessment in front of me, so I'm not in Smarty Grants, so I can't actually remember some of the details. So it would be really good to know what the full amount is.
When you say the full amount, is that of the applicant or of the total of the applications?
Both of them, please.
Okay, all right. I'll remind you at the time when we're doing the discussions, if that's all right.
Thank you.
Councillor Dalgety, you had a question?
Is it possible for that screen to be actually shared so that we can see it?
Okay.
Like in a normal Zoom situation.
Ms. Gordon will try to do the screen sharing now, if that's okay. So if you give us a couple of minutes, we'll see if we can get that screen shared, so it makes life a bit easier for you to see what's happening.
I also think there can be some discussion at some stage to improve this practice, sort of around the hui that Tracy was referring to. I have been involved before, and I think there's some tips and tricks that I've learned that could be passed on to everyone.
That's great. We'll have that discussion at the end when we've made the final determinations, and then if there's perhaps some more training required or getting together again of this committee to discuss that in an informal situation, then we'll certainly try to attempt that.
Thank you.
Through you, can I just ask Ash, my one's up there as well? Because I completed it all. Oh, yeah, they are. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
The only person who was missing was Brian. We emailed about it. He wasn't able to get those sorted in time.
Okay, so we're sharing it now.
Right,
So we'll use this one to populate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone can see the screen there now.
You may wish just to advise the members that we can't see them if they raise their hand.
Okay. So yeah, currently we can't see who's on Zoom at the moment. So all we can see is the screen that's been shared as well. So if you have a question, perhaps if you could call out, speak up, that's all we can do. But what I'll do is I'll go around and give everyone the opportunity to speak to each application. Right.
Excuse me,
Yes,
Chair.
Councillor Duncan.
Sorry, just one point that I think would be helpful for councillors in this case who aren't experienced in this area before we start the discussions is to reassure them that the staff have already okayed these applications. So these have been staff assessed before they've come to us. Is that correct? Just to
Yes, I'll ask Ash to provide comment there.
That's kind of correct, but not entirely. In the last community grants meeting, the final one, we did discuss changing these to guidelines, which essentially meant that I wouldn't be rejecting applications as eligibility check, but I would be advising applicants of criteria that was lacking. So nothing has been rejected by me, and that was a recent change.
Yeah, so the rules around the criteria are listed as guidelines, and it's up to the committee to make the decision on the final outcome. So while one application might not strictly meet the criteria, if we feel that as an event that they're going to be proactive and productive for our district, then it's up to the committee to make that decision whether they support it or not. Okay, any further questions? If not, we'll get straight into the applications.
I've got a question. Sorry,
Yes,
I can't see anybody. So,
yeah.
So my question is, the process of using Smarty grants was brought in purely to enable the sharing of information from one assessor to the next. Is that correct?
It was brought in more for the ability to collate all of the applications into an easier format for staff. One, for staff to be able to coordinate, and two, for this process here, for when we come to the deliberation process. The ability for other assessors to see what other assessors have put towards an assessment, I guess, is a spin-off from that process. So, and that might be helpful as well for certainly a new person involved in this process to be able to see what other people's comments have been and what they've put towards funding. So I think, yeah, that's another benefit that's come out of it, but it wasn't one of the sole reasons for doing this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll start off with the application from the Tybee Horse Society, and we will just run around quickly around the table for some comment from the committee members. So, Councillor Dalgety, perhaps you could start off.
Oh, well, this is a long-standing event, and there's been considerable effort to increase the community engagement, and it does attract a lot of competitors from outside the district. But for some reason, after saying I've got tips and tricks. That amount in there for me, sorry, should read 2,000. I'm not sure how I got that wrong.
Okay, so we can quite easily amend that, so, and that's part of why this process takes place. Okay, thank you. Councillor Ash.
Yeah, so the events, a fantastic event for both the district and for Tybee, and I love the way that it actually really showcases the spirit of the district. I think it would be well served for us to support it. I think the one query that I had that's sort of recurring through the sponsorship applications was council's ability to actually allow grounds to be used for free, obviously with a bond to cover any damage, etc. But if an event is free for spectators to come and watch and are open for the community, I think it would be fabulous if we could work on that, because I notice in a lot of the applications some of the cost is around the hireage of grounds. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councillor Carter, you haven't had the ability to input through the Smarty Grants process. Is that down to training required?
Yes, I actually got through to read all the applications, but when it come to inputting it back into the Smarty Grants format, my machine didn't like it, or I didn't operate it correctly. So it's more training in the respect of putting the application in.
So that's, yeah, certainly there's a reason to have a get together then to run through this process a bit better. So if you've read through the applications, I'll ask that you can provide comment here if you want to, and perhaps after seeing the screen sharing, if you're prepared to put some figures towards it. Can that be done, Ash, added into this process?
Yeah, the average amount, recommended amount does include Councillor Carter's.
Right, okay, thank you. So is there any comment you wish to provide?
I would like to agree with the amounts that have been suggested.
Yeah.
I actually myself had a bit higher than that because they run the whole thing at a loss in that respect, and not being greedy and asking for too much. So yeah, the 2,000 mark would be adequate for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, thank you. As I said in my brief note there, this is one of the events that we have in Tybee that brings in considerable external spend into our local economy. It's effectively, it's run on a shoestring by probably 10 people, and there's no local people, or very few local people actually riding this event. They're all people from all around the North Island. And, you know, just a little plug for our ground. They love our ground. These people will keep on coming back year after year and spending in our local economy. So I'll just leave it there. I think the amount that we've suggested there is appropriate.
Thank you. Councillor Hero.
Can I see? Oh, thank you. I'm just waiting for it to get pulled down so I can remember what I wrote. Yeah, I'm happy with what the amount that I've recommended, and pretty much total or what everyone else has put in there. Sorry, I'm just rereading what I've said. Can I just ask, so in this part of this process, Mr. Chair, you're asking for us to justify why we've written what we've written. What is this bit about? Sorry, I just need to get clarity, having not done it before.
If you feel you have some personal knowledge to add other than what's already in your comments, we've all got the ability to read your comments on there. Please use that as a time to either talk up the event or say the reasons why you're not supporting it to a level. This is the reason for a roundtable discussion. And then, and then if you wish to change the value after listening to that. Thank you.
I don't wish to change the value.
Thank you. Councillor Parnapa is not here, so we'll have to take his application as it sits there at the moment. Councillor Wilson?
Oh, nothing to comment other than what I've put in the grant scheme.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duncan?
Sorry. I'd just like to say I put the full amount in there because I'd like to lift the average, if at all possible, of the events that have been presented. I think this one, if there's anything left over in the end, for instance, this one would be where funds could be put.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the first round of this event sponsorship scheme, so whatever's left over goes into that second round. So, yeah, we have to be mindful that we've got $50,000 in total for the 12-month period, and then we generally look at distributing around 2/3 to 3/4, but yeah, depends on the applications.
And can I just ask a question of Councillor Duncan? So you've recommended $5,154, which is the amount that they have applied for or requested. Are you suggesting that you would look at providing them with more money than they've requested?
No. Oh,
Sorry, no, the amount they've requested is 5,154. Am I wrong?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I just thought with your comments, you said if there was money left over, we should give it to them.
I beg your pardon. No, sorry, having been part of this before, we will go through the applications, and the amount that's been requested by each one actually probably will be evened out to be able to fund each application.
Okay,
I'm just thinking ahead that by putting in the full amount, I fully understand that there's a good chance that not everyone will get their full amount, but by putting in the full amount, I will raise the average for this application. And
Thank you for sharing your tactics.
Yeah, tactics. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Right. Your Worship.
No, the only comment I've put in there is their numbers that they're quoting actually stack up very strongly against the number of people that are saying that they're going to be riding and so on. And sometimes I think with these applications, you know, it includes all sorts of other people that may or may not come.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's a very honest application.
Right, thank you. And we have Ms. Fannon's assessment there. She has declared a conflict of interest. Now, usually that is, if you do have a conflict of interest, you have no part to take in the discussion or voting process. So, unfortunately, with the conflict of interest being declared, we have to remove that figure out of the equation. And Ms. Campbell has her comments there, and the funding. So we've been through that. Everybody's happy to stick with their figures that they have there. Our average amount for the total works out to $2,619.45. We generally round this to a round figure, so 2,600 would be the closest amount. So that's how it works out. The committee's happy with that. We'll move on to the next application.
Can I just raise an issue with the process?
Yes.
So in the past, we've also had and it's not available in Smarty Grants this time round, but we've also had the ability to understand the financial position of the organisation. So for instance, you could get a group applying to hold an event that has considerable funds, and I'm not saying this is the case with this application, just as a general principle. We seem to have lost that ability to understand the organisation's financial position. Was there a reason for that?
One of the comments previously was some of these applications were filled with massive amounts of paper, which almost was a cut and paste of the organisation structure. and we felt that that overly weighed on the amount of information that had to be trawled through when assessing the application. If you feel that perhaps that information is still relevant to be included, then we can have that as a requirement. That was removed away from the requirement. Is that correct, Ash?
To be honest, I'm not sure that I've seen it there since I've been in this role, although that requirement is in another fund.
Is it in the community initiatives?
I believe it's in the creative communities.
It has been in this system prior to it being switched over to Smarty Grants. At the point I'm just asking the decision makers essentially is, for instance, if you have an organisation that has $500,000 in the bank and they're applying for $2,000, do we look at that with a degree of consideration?
Yeah.
Councillor Gordon has his hand up.
Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Look, I know it's a little bit irregular of me to ask, but I saw Michelle Fannon's note there that she was conflicted, and as chair of the Memorial Park Users Group, I try to keep as close to all of these events as I can, and I'm struggling to see where Michelle might have a conflict, because she's not aligned with that group in any way, shape, or form. So I'm just asking, did we get the administration right on which event she potentially might be conflicted with?
I'll ask Ash to provide comment.
I'm actually going to text her, because I've never seen her at any horse event ever.
Okay.
She did email for a brief explanation. So for this one, that she's indicated a conflict of interest. Is this the river to river?
No.
No.
She hasn't provided an explanation for this one, but she has for another one.
Happy with the explanation, thank you.
Councillor Dalgety.
I have an inkling that she might do the application for this group.
That she drew up the application?
That she puts the application in on behalf of this group. Possibly.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. It has been declared that there is a conflict, and that this is how we normally deal with that process. So I can only take that as read. With the opportunity hopefully being afforded to both Michelle and Laurel to be part of this discussion, that will be able to clarify some of these points at the next funding rounds when they're available. Councillor Heroy, you had your hand up.
Yes. So I just wanted to add on to what the Mayor has asked regarding that issue of not knowing the full the full picture of any group, to be honest, that might be applying for funding. So how are we going to address that? Because I would have thought if it's in one, so I think Ash had said that in one round of one part of our fundings, creative community, the arts or whatever it is, that there is a criteria to see, and I'm assuming we're talking about financials. Well, it has to be financials that we're talking about. So I just want to know, does that discussion happen in the meeting? How are we going to discuss that?
Well, so when we get to the end of this deliberation, we'll have a brief sort of overview of how it's gone and what we'd like to see included. So if we can deal with that at the end. Yeah, thank you. Okay, right, so we've come to the figure there. We move on to the Tai Happy Area Dressage Group. And if we can just have a quick run around the room of any comments that anyone would like to provide apart from what they've already provided in the system that we can all see. So, Your Worship, we'll start with you on this one.
Thank you. Yeah, this is one I actually called the applicant to clarify position on the balanced budget. The budget includes 2,900 in grants. So there's different ways that applicants handle this. They some of them draw up a budget and they include as a budget income line grants. And then there's the clarification of whether they are grants external to this process or they're including grants that they might get within this process. Other people say don't include the grants because they haven't been awarded by us and say, here's the deficit. In this case, they have included in their grants line an anticipation that we will fund them. So in effect, without that, they're in a deficit position. So it's an issue that is quite common within these applications.
Thanks for getting clarification on that. So you're happy with the figure that you've
Yes,
got listed up there?
on that basis that they haven't got a balanced budget, they do need some grants. That was my figure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Nothing further to my recorded comments.
No. Councillor Duncan.
Likewise, just as said.
Thank you. Councillor Hero.
Yeah, nothing else to add to what my justification was for the amount.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, likewise. Happy with what I've recommended.
Councillor Carter.
I actually, on my notepad here, I had 0. But having heard His Worship's explanation of their way they filled the form out, I'd be in agreement with the 2,000 mark.
2,000. Thank you. Councillor Ash.
Yeah, happy as with what I've got down there, 1580. And again, just another great event for Tybee. I again, though, am noting there, as you can read, what is the support that council can give in regards to the grounds?
Thank you. Councillor Dalgetty.
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. And we'll leave my comments as listed. So the average has come out. I've been over everyone. No one else there for comment. The average works out to $1,765.33. If we round that, it'll take it to $1,800. So the committee decision will be $1,800 to fund towards that event. Okay, we'll move on to the Tybee Riders Fundraising Committee. The application there. Now there was a pending bank account. Has that been submitted?
It hasn't been resolved. I followed up about a week ago and I still haven't been.
Okay. All right. Perhaps we'll go around the table to start with then and just get some comments from the committee. Councillor Hero.
Yeah, so it pretty much outlines my thought, and hence the reason I just asked whether or not there was any kind of hui for this committee in particular around these funding things. So the reasoning behind why I've written the reason behind why I've not recommended it. Okay. But then again, I know in the bottom I've said I'm not sure if I'm on the right track.
Yeah. I mean, what I'll do at the end of this one, because there's a few lines where people aren't recommending to support it, I'll give everyone the opportunity to give their reasons why. And after listening to the discussion, if you wish to change your point of view, you can have that right then. Councillor Gordon, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, my query is it appropriate that fundraising events are applying for money in this forum? Because that's why they got a 0 amount from me. I mean, if fundraisers are okay, then I'll put a number in there. But I assumed that fundraising was out of scope.
It is in the guidelines that they're not there to support a fundraising organisation. However, if the committee, after listening to the discussion and thinks about the big picture of where those funds going back into the community for community reasons, and the committee decides that they're willing to support it, because remember, this is an event that's been held within our district where the district will benefit, not only from the event itself, but from the outcome of the fundraising activities. If the committee decides that, yes, they're prepared to support it, then, as I say, they're guidelines, they're not absolutely strict criteria. Right, where did I get up to? Councillor Hero, Councillor Gordon, you've just spoken then? Okay, Councillor Carter.
I'm in agreement with Councillor Gordon. I see that they're making $14,000 at the end of the day. Why give them more? I've got a 0 there.
Okay, Councillor Ash.
There we go. As I've written, I love this idea. It really resonates with me. However, I don't believe it fits our criteria. A couple of notes that I'd written in my book were, well, obviously, as everybody's pointed out, it's a fundraising event, which again, I think is just fantastic. I love that. But they do make a good good chunk on their bottom line. Another thing that I found rather interesting was some of the costs as well. I wonder if it would be supportive to them to suggest they get some competing quotes on some of the items. But it's an amazing event that I believe would align really strongly with business support and business sponsorship if they wanted to, and it could become an even bigger fundraising event and enriching the community even more if they aligned with some great businesses. But as it stands, I wasn't supportive of council supporting it.
Okay. Thank you. And the comments can be provided back to the applicants from this committee. So, Councillor Dalgety.
Yeah, so I liked the principle of this event was to raise money to give back to beneficiaries within the district. I'm sorry, I haven't written down, was it cancer this time? But so in principle, yes, it is, sole purpose is to fundraise, but there's huge other benefits out of this event. It attracts outsiders into our district. It showcases how beautiful our district is, and at the same time brings locals together and grows that sense of community. So I supported it.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dalgety. I absolutely agree with your comments. We fund events effectively as an economic development to increase the GDP in our district. This is not a small event. This is a huge number of motorcycle riders travelling not only through our district but also into the Manawatu. They are buying fuel here. So the support to the GDP of the district is high, and ultimately any money they generate is coming back into our district. So it's one that I'm prepared to support.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, just not sure what the mayor and some of the other comments have read into it. All I saw was 40 motorcycle riders, and I saw little benefit of it actually. But however, I stand to be corrected if I have misread something in their application. They do not have a bank account number. If they were highly organised, I would have thought that they would have at least had that. And the planning behind this seemed to be quite poor to me. So I'm standing by my recommendations as recorded.
Can I just comment on the number? I've attended this event and helped sponsor it for the last 2 or 3 years. There'd be at least a couple of hundred.
I don't believe that's what the application read, Your Worship, unless I've misread their application.
I think it said something about the number of riders that have already registered rather than the total number of riders that they would expect.
Yeah,
From memory, but I can stand to be corrected. But I do attend it. I can tell you there are a huge number of riders that do this event.
Yeah, I thought the number was higher in the application than 40. I thought they were talking around the
Just put it.
40 Rangatiki residents, but there's external visitors to the area, so, yeah.
17.
Yeah.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Mr. Carter, yes.
200.
With that, with the worship being a sponsor, should he have a conflict of interest beside his name?
No, I don't believe so, because, for instance, I would sponsor half the events in this district in some shape or form.
I think,
Your worship, it's,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So I'll answer that question. And if you receive financial gain, then I would expect that you would have a conflict of interest. If you're supporting an event for your own reasons, then I don't have any concern about conflict of interest. So I'll make a ruling on that there is no conflict of interest from this worship. Councillor Hero, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I don't have a conflict of interest in this with Councillor Head on, I believe, but I've also personally supported this kaupapa, and I'm going purely off what the guidelines are that are set down in the rules. But I totally agree with what but those people that have said that it is the event is good and it does bring in a hell of a lot of people into Taihape. But otherwise, I'm trying to find the framework for me to work on, and I'm using the framework that's in the documentation. So it says that in my head, if this was purely about them having a ride and that was all it was about, I would have probably said yes. But because there's been the added part in there that it's fundraising and they're giving all of the funds away, the question that has come into my head, well, why wouldn't we just give the council already has given in the past funds to St. John's Ambulance, because those for 2 years that I'm aware of, that's where the money was going. So last year I sponsored personally myself some money into that. And then I've actually helped work in when they have this thing running as well. But that's where my framework is. I'm going by what the guidelines are in our paperwork, where it says if it's a fundraising event, then it's not. Yeah. So I'm happy if that gets changed, but
that's fine. And that's the reason why they were changed to guidelines. We had this discussion when the previous group was assessing this, and you could actually go through a number of the applicants and say, well, strictly speaking, they actually do distribute funds out into the community. However, they are organising an event. And if you see as a committee that the benefits to this district outweigh the guideline issue, then there's a reason to argue that point and to look at supporting the event. And that's the reasons why they were changed to guidelines instead of strict criteria. So if this committee decides that they want to support this event because they see the benefits to the district, and you can set that guideline aside for those reasons, then it's up to this committee to make that decision.
Thank you.
All right. Who have I missed? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got a lot to say, so settle in. I just want to say that this event was first organised because this group of local people wanted to showcase the district. And then because it was so successful, they decided that it should be a fundraiser for a local good cause. Also, I'd like to, on their behalf, because I do know about this, one of the chaps recently was plastering my bathroom and happened to tell me that they are having a real problem with trying to get this bank account set up. It's become a nightmare for them. They've been trying for months, and it is partly to do with COVID. It's also to do with all the banks closing down. You can't get an appointment. Everything's closed half the day, etc. So on their behalf, I'd like to advocate for that is not a lack of organisation. That is become a difficulty for them. This is a fantastic event, and it really does showcase our district. and I've been quite specific in my my comments to say why I think and where I think our funding should go to them, to the event side of it, to fund for its success, ongoing success. And the fact that Tybee is a little place and they have been banging on doors for the last 2 years to get local funding, and the same businesses get hit up every time. So there is a little bit of business fatigue, and we're all whānau in Taihape, and you get a bit sick of asking Auntie for the same funds every year. So that just to clarify that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ms. Fannin, I spoke to her this morning in regards with this application, and she has declared a conflict of interest because of where the funds will be directed. Ash, have you got some?
Yeah, if you'd just like me to elaborate, she did include this one. She said if it's a conflict of interest if it's fundraising for the St. John's building, as she's a sitting committee member.
Yes, yeah. And they have indicated that the funds would be going towards that.
I believe they did. I'll just very quickly double check.
That raises an interesting, that I'd like a ruling from the chair. I attend some of their fundraising meetings. I'm not on their formal structure or committee, as I attend a number of fundraising meetings right throughout the district.
Yeah.
So I have a loose association with that organisation, with St. John's.
Yeah. I think if you're part of their structure, then I would have a concern. As Ms. Fannin has indicated here, she is a board member on St. John's, is that right? On the fundraising committee?
She didn't actually specify St. John's, she just said a sitting member on the committee.
Yeah. So that, to me, strikes a conflict of interest. But if you attend some of these meetings, I don't believe that shows a conflict of interest.
I think I'd have to declare, because I have gone out and promoted them as an organisation with station owners, etc. So I probably have the similar conflict to Michelle in that regard. So,
well, what I'm going to ask the committee, you've declared a conflict of interest, but because of your position as mayor of the district, I'm sure you speak for a number of organisations. So you would have to declare your conflict of interest many times.
Exactly.
So does the committee feel that that is a conflict which should be taken into account in this application or not? Please raise your hand if you feel that there is a conflict of interest. You can't? Okay, all right.
Well, they can raise it and I can see it here.
Okay. Look, I'm happy to rule from the chair that His Worship the Mayor does not have a conflict of interest. So
if it helps in their application, they stated that they funded St. John's in the last 2 years. They haven't said that they will necessarily do that this year, and they mentioned that there were other community groups that were also worthy of support.
And on the chat, there's a couple of councillors saying no conflict.
no conflict, right. Okay, thank you. Okay, further speakers. Now, after listening to the comments, there has been some people who have not supported this event. Is there anyone prepared to change their support to this event after listening to the discussion? So I'll just run through from the top. Councillor Ash.
I'm still happy and comfortable with where I was at.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carter.
Happy where I'm at.
Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, I'd like to put $1,000 behind my name there, please.
Councillor Hero. Councillor Hero, are you online? No, Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Right. Councillor Hero, you wishing to change after listening to the discussion?
After listening to the discussion, I think that there's, hence this is the reason why I asked right from the start, whether or not, because I wasn't privy to these things in the past as a committee, I wasn't understanding, I needed to have a fuller understanding from a committee point of view of how people looked at and viewed these, viewed the applications that came in. So I've put in there that personally, I have a brother that's part of this event, and I've personally put money into it to support them. But going through the criteria again, and I know you've said that it isn't strict, it's just a guideline. If I step out of that, then what else do I have to, then I feel like I have to step out of everything else when it comes to this part in it where it talks about fundraising. I support the event, absolutely, because it is a Tai Happy event. And if it didn't say that it was fundraising, then I would have absolutely put on, and I am going to change my God, and saying that I will be making, I'd like to put in a change to $1,000.
Thank you.
We've just had a message from Councillor Dalgety, whose system's crashed, so she's just offline at the moment.
Okay. Councillor Wilson, your turn.
Yeah, look, I support the correspondence, but I do believe that the application itself doesn't stack up, and I think it was actually poorly put together.
Okay.
And can I just ask Councillor Wilson, in light of the, would you be prepared to remove the appears to be a small private group, having now been given evidence that it's a couple of hundred people?
Well, it's the group of, where should I, to be perfectly honest with you, the group that's organising it is a small private group. So I think
the comments.
No, the comment is there. I'm going to leave it stand.
So we have to leave them there. Yeah. So, okay. So after tallying up the support that this, sorry.
Can we remove Michelle Fennan?
Oh, sorry, I thought that had been removed. It has been removed.
Okay, sorry, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So our average has come out at $1185.45. We'll round that to $1,200 that the committee supports this event for. Right. Next application, Huntley School Jubilee Committee. And we will start off with Councillor Dalgety. Oh, is Councillor Dalgety online yet or not?
Trying to join,
She's
but
not.
she hasn't
Okay,
been able to.
I'll hold off from her then. Councillor Ash.
I'm just unmuting myself. Yeah, so with this one, I think it's an amazing opportunity to actually celebrate what Huntley has contributed to the district over the last 125 years. It's a massive achievement to still be around after that time, and the quality of the education that they've been providing to the district has been high. But I just think it's an opportunity to be able to celebrate that, what they're actually doing, creating memories for these young people as they're going through their school years is significant. And I don't think it's something to be dismissed, having an opportunity to create memories for young people of the rangatike of Martin. Yeah, I do support it.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Yeah, just reading through what Councillor Gordon's written here is exactly where I'm feeling myself. It's a private event, and had they've made their tickets say $10 dearer, they would cover their own costs. And with the huge amount of food that's been put forward in the costings, that's something that we don't actually cover. So I think it's a private function that they need to fund for themselves, and then I'm not supporting it.
Okay, so just a clarification on some of that. The eligible costs are weeded out and put into the report, so it does remove a lot of those catering type costs when it comes down to the assessment. process. But we'll deal with that, I think, when we have a bit of a training and get together in regards with how to assess these applications. Right, thank you. Councillor Gordon.
Interesting, this one. You know, we've just gone, the last application was about fundraising, and we've sort of blurred, I think we've blurred a little bit there. This one is essentially a private function. I mean, I think for me, it's a bridge too far. So I'm just going to leave it there. I support what I've written.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hero.
Yeah, I've got well, these are my reasoning behind putting forward an amount. And that's what, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yep. Thank you. Next down the list there, Councillor Parapa, Councillor Wilson.
Nothing more to comment apart from what's been said.
Okay. Councillor Duncan.
No, just what I said. It would be nice to know if local companies are being used.
Okay. Your Worship.
Yeah, I had two boys that went to the school, and before I filled this out, I asked them whether they'd been attending any alumni events or whether they intended going to this function. The answer to both was no. If they had been attending, I would have said that I was conflicted. As such, I don't believe that I am, and it's much the same way that I've had children that go to Rangatike College, etc. The only question I have around the numbers with COVID, is it really likely that you're going to get 1,000 people to a sit-down meal, to a banquet? That's would seem, you know, every one of these that have been associated with in any shape or form from Rangatike College, the number of people attending these things has been slowly dropping over the years. I'd be interested, Fee would have more and Dave would have more to say possibly about the numbers that have been attending Ngā Tawa functions of this nature. Is that fair comment?
Yeah, I would have said it was fair comment. Across the board, I would agree with that.
Okay. Thank you. Back to the top. Yeah, I've put my comments there. This is a significant school within our district, and they are a business in themselves, and certainly hugely supportive, and they have a good interaction with council. Having this event, happy to support them to the level of promotional material for their event. Councillor Dalgety.
Sorry, first time I've been on Zoom and everything just went crash. So,
Welcome back.
Look, this is a high profile event for Huntly School, bringing a lot of old boys back into Martin, and girls, beg your pardon. And it's a great milestone with significant celebrations, and I think I support it.
Okay, that's gone through the list now.
Excuse me, Chair.
Oh, have I not asked for your input, Councillor Duncan?
No, you definitely did, excuse me, but after the Mayor's comments, I would like to say that both my boys have been invited to this event, and one of them will probably attend. So is that a conflict of interest?
I personally don't see, is there anyone on the committee that has an issue with that being a conflict of interest? If there is any raises of hands, I'll take comment. Councillor Ash?
Yeah, sorry, it's definitely not a conflict of interest that I'm raising. I'm just suggesting that I'm also in the same situation. My son attended there. I don't think he's going to be attending it though, but he did attend Huntly.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you for raising those points, but I'll rule from the chair that those are not conflict of interests. So we will include your decisions
Sorry,
in the
Chair.
deliberations. Councillor Dalgetty.
Yeah, just coming back into the middle of that conversation. So there's a good chance I will attend the Saturday night event of this weekend.
Okay. But I think attendance of the event isn't a conflict of interest, so I'll rule from the chair that there is no conflict. Okay, after tallying up the average amounts of support across the group, we've come out at $3,390. So rounding that to 3,400, the committee will support the event for that figure.
Can I just check, because somebody will ask this, I'm sure, when you're averaging out, those people that have not put a figure in are included in the numbers as part of the average process, aren't they?
I believe they are, but Ash, can you answer that question? So if there's a zero figure put to someone's support towards the event, their number is still part of the calculation?
Yes, correct. So up here, it's just the average of
So it's still divided by the amount of people, correct? Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify.
We've got different amounts, so I just need to understand why.
We've just got to clarify a figure and how this is averaging out. So just one moment while we do that.
555.
We're just checking the calculations on screen at the moment. So.
Oh, no, it's cool. Thank you. Right.
Right, did that? Yes, that came out right, didn't it? $3,390. Yep, so we're rounding that to 3,400. Committee support to that application. Okay, next application up is Lions Club of Hunterville Charitable Trust for the Bike to the Boulders event. I'll start with asking, are there any conflicts of interest on this event? Councillor Dalgetty.
My husband is a member of this Lions Club.
Okay. I don't believe. Is there any committee member that feels that that is a conflict of interest? No, I'm happy to rule from the chair that that is not a conflict. Thank you for raising it. Okay, starting off with comments, Councillor Wilson, you're first up.
Only to what is recorded, Chair.
It's recorded. Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
No, I'm happy with. Hang on, I can't even see where I am. Yes, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Your worship.
Look, I think it's great. You know, relatively new thing. 218 riders last year is pretty impressive. So I fully support.
Who's below the? Sorry, Ash. No, okay, back to the top. There's myself, so happy to support as in the amount that I've recommended there with those notes. Councillor Dalgetty.
Nothing more to add.
Thank you. Councillor Ash.
As I've said there, I absolutely love events like this, and it increases and really supports wellbeing, but it still comes back to it being a fundraiser, which again, I absolutely love, but I think that they're in a position to be able to finance themselves and fund themselves from the monies that they do make.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
A zero for me on that one as well, being a fundraiser. Thank you.
Councillor Gordon.
Could someone please clarify what they intend to donate the profit to?
Believe in the application it was towards St. John's and Hunterville.
Okay, put $1,000 in for me, seeing as we've effectively amended the fact that we do fundraiser events. Thank you.
yeah, as I reiterated, it is a guideline, and it's up to you how you treat that, but then it's a final committee decision. Councillor Hero.
Oops.
Councillor Hero, are you online?
Mute, unmute.
Sorry. Oh God. I'm given that I'd changed my mind from the last Tybee riders, I'm happy to put forward an amount of $1,000.
Thank you. Right, that's gone through the group, so we've come out with 11,0667 as an average amount to support, rounding that to $1,100. The committee's support towards that event. Okay, moving on to Hunterway Festival. The application from them towards that festival, and we will start off just asking for any committee member who has a conflict of interest with this event. None? Okay, we will start off with Councillor Gordon.
Happy with what I put there.
Thank you. Councillor Hero?
I'm happy with what I've put.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Happy with what I've put.
Right. Councillor Duncan?
Yes, this is a wonderful event. We're so lucky to have this. Well done, Hunterville. Very high profile, but we do offer other assistance in the form of fee waiving. So yeah, that's why I thought I gave a smaller amount.
Okay, thank you. Your Worship.
Yeah, it is one of our iconic events. I'm mindful when we look at this funding round, we increased the amount of money that we've had in the event sponsorship because these organisations are struggling, and the expenses are getting higher and higher, and if we want them to continue, then we fund. And that's why we, by LTP submission, we increased the numbers, and I suspect that we're going to end up with only a very small amount of the money that we actually spent. So I'm prepared to support this quite heavily.
Thank you. And if that's how it plays out, I mean, that it still leaves that second round of funding, and I think it's up to us as elected members to spread the word around this sponsorship scheme fund and really get some events that are worthy of it to apply. We'll just get events applying to this grant, and so we can assess their applications. Now, we've had a conflict of interest declared from Mrs. Laurel Campbell. Now, have you got any comment to provide there? No. Unfortunately, without Laurel being here to speak to that conflict, we have to take that as declared and remove her from the deliberations for this event. Mr. Biggs, you had some comment.
Yes, I've just talked with Ash, and to his worship's question before around mathematics of what's been done in the other cells. It's just I would like some time, perhaps at the end of this, to go back to ensure that where there's a conflict of interest that you have ruled, that cell is not included in the average, although it might be zero.
Yeah.
If that cell is included, then the average will change, will drop. So I want to make sure that cell is actually not included in the average figure.
Thank you.
So we'll just have some time to check that, if you don't mind, before we go into the final resolution.
Okay, I appreciate that, because that is important that they are removed out of the averaging. Right. So, getting back up to. Okay. So yeah, I've put those comments. This event is truly an iconic event of our district, and I believe it deserves RDC support, and as His Worship said, we've increased this fund to be able to help support them to a larger degree than what we have previously, and that's the reason why I've put the figure as what it is. Councillor Dalgetty.
I agree with your sentiments, and that there's just so many voluntary hours that go into making this event happen right across the community, and I'm going to increase my recommendation to $5,000.
Okay, now I've covered everyone off to have an opportunity to speak.
Sorry.
Councillor Ash, sorry, did I not give you an opportunity?
No, you didn't.
Sorry. All right, your turn.
And I'm going to leave mine where it's at, which is I'm not supportive of us giving funding at this stage because I just don't know enough about what's happening in the background of this. As I said in my comments there, the comments that I've actually had back from people after the event and what I've actually witnessed myself has been rather disturbing and quite sad. And while by no means is that across the board, I see incredible dog handling and real respect for the animals, but there has been a number of times where that's been questionable and maybe a bit too much testosterone or something is going on. And I feel uncomfortable supporting something where the respect of the animals, which is what it's all about, is not of the highest priority. And I think for our reputation as well, it's really important that we feel aligned with the principles that the organisers are putting into the event to ensure that the participants are adhering to the highest level of animal welfare. So it's like I say, it's an event that I've really loved. I love the idea of it. It certainly has been an iconic event, but I do think it's necessary for us, for the animals' welfare, to actually take a moment to check out how people are adhering to that, something along those lines. Like I said, it's a great event, but I do have concerns, and as do other people that have approached me, concerns for the welfare of some of the animals that have been thrown and held down and stuff. Thank you.
Councillor Carter.
I'm more than happy to support this event, being with the people that actually attend, the number of people, and the people it's bringing into the districts, not only just the huntable area that benefit, but the surrounding districts, with the people travelling from out of our area into it. And especially the schools that are competing in it. So I'd like to contribute 6,000 to this one, please.
Right, so that's given everyone an opportunity to speak to this. I haven't missed anyone. No. Okay, so we've averaged out at 4,727.27. The rounding will bring that back to 4,700 as support from this committee. Is that correct? Is that... Okay, we're just going to double check those figures before we... Okay, so 4,700 support towards the Huntable Huntaway Festival application. Rightio, moving on to the Turakina Caledonian Society application, and Your Worship.
Thanks. Yeah, just the only question was around this event. In the past, the high costs seem to have been from the requirement to have overseas judges, and the question was, will that continue? Other than that, I'll just leave the comments there.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I think this should be self-funding. When I was looking through the costs, the entry fees didn't even cover the cost of prizes, which I thought was surprising. This is a very long-standing event. It's very successful. People love it. Totally think it's fabulous, but I really think it should be self-funding. So I think I think the 2,800 was to cover things such as fees and advertising.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Nothing further to add.
Okay. Councillor Hero.
Nothing further to add.
You, Councillor Gordon.
Likewise, nothing further to add.
Councillor Carter.
Great event. I'd like to give the amount they're asking for, the $5,092.
Thank you. Councillor Ash.
Very happy to support. Love the event. Think it's great for the district, and again, it really promotes wellbeing.
Thank you. Councillor Dalgety. Councillor Dalgety, are you online? Yes.
Sorry. Yes, I think this is a great long-standing event. That I see they spend 2,800 in advertising, and so I'm happy to cover that at $3,000.
Thank you. And that's us. Who was down the bottom? Sorry, Ash. There were no conflicts down the bottom, were there? No. Okay. So that's averaged out at $3,730, rounding up to 3,700 to support from this committee. Okay. Tybee Community Development Trust application. And we'll start off with Councillor Dalgety. Oh, sorry, Ash. Hang on, before I go to you, Councillor Dalgety.
Sorry, I just thought I would highlight was raised by a few of the assessors, but I'm not sure if everyone's aware. Their application stated 28,000. They're actually only after half of that, so the requested amount is 14,337.
Okay, so and they are eligible costs. Yeah, so they're asking for the full amount of the eligible costs there. Well, 50%, yeah, 50% of it. Sorry. Okay. Right, Councillor Dalgety, we'll start off with you.
So I just note that they receive RDC funding elsewhere, so I assume they're still eligible. Sorry, I'm still happy for them to receive funding from us because it's a new focus with a combined Gumboot and AMP show, and I feel it needs a bit of seed money to really get the community behind this and see this partnership succeed. I was just a little bit concerned about the large costs for sound and some other costs there, but I've recommended 4,000.
Thank you. Councillor Ash.
Again, really great event, great for the district, great for Taihape. Obviously, I do have some concerns around them being an MOU partner, and they would be paid like any of the other MOU partners for the delivery of that event. So I'm not too sure where that sits. The understanding previously has always been if it's an MOU funded event, then they cannot apply for a further fund allocation through these things. Like I say, happy to support maybe 3,000, depending on where the rest of the committee sit.
Thank you. I'm just going to now ask for comment from the Chief Executive in regards with this position. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just seen the trend in the conversation from elected members. I have Gayleen online, I hope Gayleen's online, and I've asked her to answer questions on behalf of staff.
Okay, all right.
Gayleen.
Thank you. My understanding is that they wouldn't be eligible because they have received funding as an MOU partner, and one of the events they have described in their work plan is this event. However, I have spoken with Nadia. She's of the same opinion as myself. However, she believed that perhaps in the past they may have received funding when there was an event within an event. So in this particular case, because they are in partnership with the former AMP, whether that is considered in a similar vein of an event within an event.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, still causes I guess raises some issues around funding the event because of some of the criteria there. I guess it's up to the committee at the end of the day to make a final decision. So we'll listen to the discussion as we go through, and then I'll give the opportunity to for any committee member to alter their support if after the discussion they feel they should. Right. So Councillor Dalgety, you've spoken. Councillor Ash, Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Galen, for adding more confusion to the funding part of it. Having seen what their application and their funding, having seen that they've already got monies from the council, I don't believe they should double dip. So I'm a 0.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gordon.
Yes, in terms of this event, it is a combined event. And so we've got our community trust on one side doing part of it effectively, and the rump of AMP doing the other. So I'm going to increase my number to $2,000. But I want to make a comment. This would have to be the worst application that we have in front of us. The fact that there's no costings in there, and the fact that it's been put in by our local community trust, I'm being quite blunt here, they need to get their act together. And I don't like saying that, I really don't, but there's so many people in that community that have been pulling together costings for this event, and the two that fed into it previously. I mean, even if they did a really cheap and nasty copy and paste job, they could have a better summary of costs in front of us. I feel that in terms of the application, our community has been a little bit let down. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not very happy.
Thank you. Councillor Hero.
Thank you for the clarity that's been given by around the MOU partnering side of it. And yeah, I agree with what Councillor Gordon has said in regards to the application itself. I actually want to reduce my recommendation, and it's because of that taking into consideration that if the event, even though it's partnering up with somebody else, has already been highlighted as one of the events that's going to be put on by the Tybee Community Development Trust. In theory, that means that within their budget they would have allocated something towards it. I still think that there's I still don't have any problem with us putting more money into it. And I'd like to take my funding down to 3.5, from 7 to 3,500, going off what Galen had said.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I take on board what Councillor Gordon has said. Whilst I've made a comment there that I question some of the value for money in the quotes, it is not our role to question that. I actually believe that we underfund our MOU partners, and I've made that comment on a number of occasions. I don't think we fund them enough to actually deliver what we want them to do. So in this particular case, I'm happy with the recommendation that I have put, and I'm also happy that it may, while step outside the bounds of our MOU partnerships with what they are to deliver. I believe this is a sponsorship scheme that we are discussing, and therefore additional sponsorship is required to ensure that these events go ahead. So I'm quite happy with my recommendation in that regard.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I have to agree with Councillor Gordon and Councillor Hero. around the fact that this application was not the best. I actually rang the trust just to make sure that that full amount was wrong, and they confirmed. But given that as the council actually has been suggesting for years that these guys get together and have one event for Taihape, and last year was the first one, and it was really quite successful, but it is quite tricky getting all those groups together. And it's not just the AMP Society, it's also Tybee Sharing and the Equestrian Group who are involved in this event. And Tybee Sharing, which actually brings in a lot of people, do not contribute financially at all. Well, they didn't last year, put it that way. So also the event is a koha entry fee, which is not a fee, a gold coin, and half of that goes to the group who collect the money, which is the local Māori wardens. So you can see it's a real local event. I'd like to increase my amount to $5,000. And I really think we have to get behind these events that are, well, they can be struggling, but in actual fact, it is getting better.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, there's been some very interesting comments in this space. I absolutely get the comment that our Chair of Assets, Councillor Wilson, has made, that if it's in the MOU and it's an expectation, then there has to be an appropriate level of funding for them to be able to deliver. Now we're in sort of no man's land to some extent. In terms of the koha, my understanding is it's an expected sum and it's gone to the Rotary Club in Taihape, not the event. And if we are funding this on the basis of the sharing sports, etc., then they should be getting some of the money because they're struggling to be able to afford do their own thing. So we're giving effectively to the trust. And I don't think the trust then financially supports the sharing sports as part of it. Maybe the trust take the view that in providing the promotion and marketing around the total event is the case. I'd probably reduce my sum from 6,000 to 5,000 is the short answer. There are concerns that need to be resolved in the future, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully some of these comments will be put together and provided back to the applicants, and perhaps a discussion up there and amongst the groups to help have some better understanding of the fundings and where that goes for each event, even though it is combined. Back to my comments, yeah, I'm happy to leave it there as that level of support. We are, the group is looking at combining those three events together, so I don't feel that it's strictly just the Gumboot Day Festival. I think there's other events there, so still happy to support it for that reason. Councillor Dalgety, have you had the opportunity to speak?
Yes, I have spoken, thank you.
Yeah, great, okay. Thank you. So the amount averaged out comes out at $4,125. So the rounding will take that to 4,100. The committee will support that event. That is the last application we have to deliberate over as far as the assessment criteria goes. So.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Ash.
Thank you. Just a very, very quick question. It was a bit of a query as I was going through these. I noticed this time of the year is normally in our events thing where we see the Christmas parades and stuff funded, and yet we haven't received any for the town's Christmas parades. How are we looking at supporting those for this year's Christmas events?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would expect that they would have had applications in the organisations who are running them. However, The application is always open, is that correct? It's how we just deliberate on a.
So from the next round moving forwards, the application's going to be open all year, effectively all year round.
Yeah, but then the deliberation, so they won't have an outcome until this group meets. Yeah.
No change to the deliberation.
Yeah. Okay. Good question, Councillor Ash. I'm not sure. Have you got any comment, Your Worship?
It's difficult for them to be able to budget whether to run an event if we haven't made a deliberation. And whether we can fund something post the event has been questionable in the past. It's a good point. I think I thought the council had made a determination that the chief executive had the right to be able to pay for street closures, which has been a large part of these events in the past. I'd need some checking on that.
Okay, I think that's a discussion that we'll have to have outside of this area, but yeah, certainly a good point made, Councillor Ash, that the applications, if their event is being held, they have to be well and truly aware of when these deliberations are taking place, to when they will be notified of receiving the funding. So that's perhaps something we can take on board to communicate out.
Through you, Chair, the Christmas parade, if that's what we refer to specifically, in the past has been run by Project Martin, who has wound up its operations at this present point in time, and I'm not aware of any other organisation coming back through to take over those realms. So I'm not surprised that we haven't received an application for Christmas parades, as there's no organisation at this stage delivering one of those or that I'm aware of in the community.
We have a greater district, including Tybee and Bulls, that also run Christmas parades and are generally funded by council events scheme as well. So it's not just Martin.
Yes, good point.
Okay. Right, so we've got the figures worked out. Have they been tallied up correctly with the conflicts of interest removed from the equation?
I checked that and they were correct.
They are correct, right. Okay, so we've got the figures there on screen. If everyone had the opportunity to read through, I'm happy to read through the figures here, and then we'll have someone move that the figures be accepted. Right, so we've got Tybee Horse Society, 2,600. Tybee Area Dressage Group, $1,800. Tybee Riders Fundraising Committee, $1,200. Huntley School Jubilee, 3,400. Lions Club of Hunterville Charitable Trust, 1,100. Hunterville Hunterway Festival, 4,700. Turkina Caledonian Society Incorporated, 3,700. And Tai Happy Community Development Trust, 4,100. Bringing it to a total...
22,600.
22,600.
Are those the numbers, you fact check those against
Yeah,
that? Sorry.
That's fine. So 22,600 has been distributed out of the $50,000 fund. The balance will be carried forward to the next determination round, which is held...
it'll be March.
In March. Before that, we will obviously have to organise a get-together of this group to iron out any concerns that you've had around this process, and perhaps do some fine-tuning on how we go about assessing these grants in a more conformed way. Your Worship.
Yes, I was going to bring this up. So with Project Martin not being in place, for instance, one of the big events has been Market Day, and Council has indicated a desire that this proceeds. So is it possible that this committee could see some of the delegation for a possible funding around this event to come out of this fund pool back to Council if Council was to deliver it? So I'm probably seeking some direction here. If it is deemed to be a significant event, and if Council has indicated that it wishes to see the event proceed, we're the one left holding the basket. but we haven't got an appropriate budget line to be able to do that possibly. And this is the event funding schedule.
My understanding was the funding allocated to Project Martin was going to be utilised to allow those events to be run. So the funding was going to come out of the MOU. Is that correct?
Yes, it's actually covered in the council meeting this afternoon and part of the Chief Executive's report. There's going to be an application to pub charity and also use of the funds that would have been given to the MOU partner Project Martin is going to be used for the harvest. So it's actually in the report this afternoon as well.
Okay.
About how it will be funded.
All right. I think we'll leave that there and deal with that discussion at council. It's certainly, I recall reading that in the council paper, so that's where I expected that funding would be coming from to help run those two events. Okay, so let's get through the recommendations here. So could I have someone move that the event sponsorship scheme consideration of applications of round one be received? Moved Councillor Dalgety, seconded Councillor Carter. All those in favour? All right, carried. Thank you. And the recommendation 2, that the Finance Performance Committee approve the sponsorship of events as listed below and disperse the event sponsorship scheme as outlined to successful applicants. And that will be with those figures that we went through. So we're having that moved by Councillor Duncan and seconded by Councillor Hiroa. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Thank you.
We've got one more recommendation.
Yes.
At the top there.
Okay, so the first recommendation that was up there, sorry, I forgot to put that to the table. I'm happy to move this from the chair, that the Finance Performance Committee recommends to Council that the 2 external assessors, which is Michelle Fannin and Laurel Campbell, be invited to take part on discussions, deliberations and decisions when the events sponsorship scheme and grants are discussed at future Finance Performance Committee meetings. Could we put the events sponsorship scheme and community initiatives scheme in there just to list those 2, because they're the 2 that they will be involved in. So I'm happy to move that recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dalgety, you're seconding that. Is there any discussion in regards with that? Councillor Carter.
Should that have not been done before this round?
You're quite correct, and it is an oversight from myself as to allowing them the opportunity to sit at this table and provide information into the deliberation. This is the process that we need to take to have the committee make the decision on whether they see that fit in them taking place. So that's the reason why they haven't been included in this discussion round. However, they have provided assessment. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Can I request or just put to this committee that I think it would be quite helpful for us to be able to see the comments of other councillors or other assessors before we have this meeting. I think it would speed up and help our decision making, because other people's comments are very can be quite influential and illuminating.
Yes, certainly, and I think that ability is there when you're filling out the assessment, your own assessment on online through the Smarty Grants process. You have the ability to click on anyone who's filled one of those assessments out already and actually review their comments and funding figure that they've put to it. So I guess it's if you're early on in the stage of doing that, then you're not going to see those applications on there. It's not until everyone has filled out their application and submitted it that you'll see that. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Subsequent to that, it's actually not at that point where it's so, in fact, at that point, I think it's better for people to make up their own minds given what they're reading. It's actually when it comes to the meeting where you need a refresher on what you've actually written, given that we we don't have our Smarty grants up in front of us. And,
Thank you.
Yeah,
I do appreciate that. Ash, is that able to be done? Those comments able to be pulled out and put into the report? Yeah, are they able to be put into the report that's tabled in the order paper?
It would be very clunky, just because it's such a big spreadsheet, but you could, or alternatively, up to you, of course, I could just email it out to people because I have a due date of a week before the meeting for all of those to be complete.
So the time constraints make it challenging, but...
No, the time constraints are fine. It's just up to you whether you want to include it in the order paper where it's being quite difficult to format it. It's quite large.
Okay. Would you be happy for it to be emailed out directly to the committee members rather than being included in the order paper?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. So you're happy with that undertaking to do that? Okay. Right. Thank you. No further speakers. I'm happy just to support the reason for having these two ladies involved in the process. They have significant, as I said earlier, they have significant experience in assessing grants on a national basis and also applying for grants. So I think their wisdom has been hugely valuable in previous committee rounds when it was being run under the previous scheme. So I think to have their input is beneficial for us as a committee as well. Councillor Hero. Oh, sorry, that's my right of reply. I've got to put it straight to the vote now. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Hero, I used my right of reply. Did you have a comment?
I just wanted to know, is this the part where we're going to go back and discuss some of the things that got brought up through this? Because your comment just then when you're talking about somebody like, there's a number of places within this process where, is it Laurel Campbell had
Yes.
Absolutely, in her years of being part of this process, has downrightly said that she did that, the funding of, I feel like it's at least 3 of the events that she's highlighted, and just taking on what Jill said, shouldn't be because of that fundraising aspect. I don't want us to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I'm just trying to get my head around it. And there's some other aspects like things that Councillor Ash had brought up, things that the Mayor had brought up. I don't feel like it needs to be done in this meeting, but I definitely think that there needs to be a discussion held somewhere where we can just talk about those issues.
Yeah, definitely correct. And that's where I would like to see a meeting organised for this committee and the 2 external assessors to sit around the table and go through the process and raise the pros and cons of the system to give everyone a better understanding.
Thank you.
Make this process run a bit more smoothly. And it's a bit challenging too in the current environment with Zoom. It certainly becomes a bit challenging in that respect. Okay, so I've put that to the vote. The next one we have to do is receive the project report forms from previous applications. So we have 3 projects there, and you will have all had the opportunity to read through those project forms. Is there any discussion on those projects, or can I get someone to move that and put it straight through? Right. Moved, Councillor Wilson, that we receive those project forms, seconded by Councillor Hero. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, thank you very much. Always knew that was...
Carol, could you just scroll back a minute just so I can copy those other... Yeah, wait.
Nigel, we've been going nearly 2 hours. Do you want to just suspend standing orders?
Okay, yeah, do that. Okay, so we're now past, well, nearly 2 hours, sorry, and we have to technically take a rest break. So at the moment, if we can have a 5-minute break, if we pause the meeting, we go into recess. What do we call it? We adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes and we'll return at 11:31. Thank you.
Few people.
on pause or?
Yeah, on pause. We'll
Yeah.
pause.
Right, we're back recording. Right, welcome back, everybody. Everyone's online. Unfortunately, Andy is just out of the meeting at the moment. He'll be coming back in shortly. Now, we are moving on to the financial snapshot, and I'll hand over to Mr. Toombs to take us through the report, please.
Thank you very much. I've just got one quick introductory comment. Page 52 has got all of council operating revenue and expenses. Just want to point out that the other expenses budget of 19.5 million on the far right-hand column, that was the result of a recent upgrade. It's just out by 18 grand, so officers are looking into that. Just thought I'd point it out in case anyone was asking why that doesn't equal the long-term plan. We're well aware of that. We think this is the CEO's cost centre. He's managed how to get in there and give himself extra 18 grand budget, but we found him. So we'll be refining that. Everything else, happy to take as read and answer any queries. Say 2 months into the financial year, wouldn't be expecting too many variances, and we don't have too many, so.
Thank you.
Happy for
And
questions.
as I said in my chair's report, yeah, it is early stages into the new financial year, and there will be some discrepancies as in variations in the report, and it's very difficult to read anything into those at such an early stage. We'll have no budget spent and a significant budget allocated. So yeah, it'll be challenging to read the reports in certainly in the first iteration, which this is. I'll take questions now. Mindful of the time, we've still got a fair bit to get through on the agenda, and mindful of the time, if we can keep the questions down to a minimum and succinct. But I'll take questions now. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. 3 quick questions. Not quite sure how to read 2.2, but I'm assuming that when it says current estimates that we should receive an additional unbudgeted 173K, this is from Waka Kotari in response to that delayed funding. Is that right?
So yes, that's in regards with the roading subsidies and grant revenue in the roading budget. Is that correct? So page 50 of the order paper, 2.2 under activity performance reports.
Yeah. So basically, because they're behind in their work programme, it's a timing difference. They expect to catch that up. Yes, yeah. But there is also a very minor impact flowing through to this of the other changes in the low cost, low risk budgets. Yes. That will have a very minor impact on the full year figures. But the main year to date budget variance is just a timing difference that will be caught up in the coming months. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. When it says in 2.3, it says a landfill, are we referring to Portorino?
Yes.
Yes. And 2.4, unforeseen prolonged interruption, is that COVID?
Yes, yeah.
Thank
you. Okay. Sorry, Councillor. Anything, COVID's the most obvious example, but maybe a weather event or whatever else. In the absence of any other disruption, we expect to still deliver the programme.
Right. Okay. Any further questions of the statement of performance? If there's none, could I have someone move that this report be received, please?
Happy to move.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Heroa. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay, 9.3, we have the summary of bad debts attached. Do you have any information you'd like to provide?
No, just happy to have it taken as read. It's
Okay. Any questions on that report? I mean, it pretty much just outlines, it's a 6-monthly report that will come to this committee, and it outlines the position of where our debts are and how they're being handled, either within council or whether they've been forwarded to an external party to deal with.
I'd just like to ask, Dave, do you have any concerns?
No.
That's fine. Quick question from me. Are we still using our same external providers for debt recovery that was been in place for a couple of years now? Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Duncan.
Further to just what Councillor Wilson just said, can we just be reminded who they are? Our debt people?
So the people in charge of recovering the debts?
Yeah, it's an offshoot of the MWLAS councils.
Thank you.
Yeah, they've asked for their logo to be removed from this report because it's a public report. So.
Thank you. Okay, no further questions. All right, could I have someone move that the report on summary of bad debts be received? Thank you, Councillor Carter, seconded Councillor Gordon. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the QV monthly report. And Mr. Toombs, do you have any comment?
No, we've actually got Danny online as the author of the paper. If there were any, I've got nothing to add. If anyone's got any queries for Danny, okay, we'll be able to respond to them.
Any questions to this report? That's obviously fairly early stages too, and this this is for July 2021. But again, there's some significant changes for our district, and it's obviously showing the position of our district and the demand within it. So, yeah. For our information of understanding how the district is heading in regards with property values. All right, could I have someone move that the QV monthly report for July-August be received? Thank you, Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Hero. All those in favour? Aye, carried, thank you. Right, report 9.5, statement of service performance. And who will be taking us through this report?
So, where is now?
Mr. Forster, welcome to the table. Yeah, just pop over there, thank you. Right, so the 12-month statement of service and performance, and I will hand over to Mr. Forster to take us through the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carol, are you going to touch on that part first, or do you want me to go over the SSP stuff first?
If you just outline what's in your report.
Okay, cool. So yeah, prepared here is the 12-month statement of service performance. Obviously, just to highlight, only achieving 22 out of the 56 measures. So again, doesn't make for fantastic reading, unfortunately. Positively, though, as a part of our long-term plan development, we did some significant reviewing on how that's set out. So when we have to do our 12-month statement of service performance, a lot of the measures were all combined. So as an example, stormwater, we have infringement notices, abatement notices, enforcement notices, and there is one more, sorry, but yeah, so the four are all combined within the one measure. We did achieve it this year, but if we were to not achieve one part of that, we would have not achieved overall. So as you'll all know, when we went through, we did remove some of those measures, but we will now have just over 60, even though we've got rid of some, because we've separated them out. So when we come to a situation where we may still receive one not achieve, we can still get 3 achieves. So from that, we'd obviously like to see a dip in not achieves, but we would still receive them, but the increase of achieves would go ahead. So as an example, in the current statement of service performance, there's some not achieves where we could have had 1 not achieved and 2 achieves, just to provide a bit of an example. I'm happy to take any questions with that and then move on to the second part around changes and the dashboard part.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take questions of the report, first of all. So questions from committee members. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. I just have a question around, I'm not quite sure if this is where we're up to, but on page 75, item 9.5, it says when a performance measure is not achieved, it becomes a focus area for improvement. And one of the things that it goes on to say that is a problem is that it's not so much that it's not achieved, but that it's not, some of those call-outs are not being signed off on time. And that's to do with a number of things, but one of them is connectivity, which I'm very interested in as far as the Northern District is concerned, because connectivity is still a huge problem. So I'm wondering how we are focusing on that area for improvement.
I suppose there's quite a bit going on there. So firstly, I suppose the government's black spot initiative that they're addressing at the moment, that's got a large part to play in rural connectivity. That's obviously out of our control, but what it means is, I suppose, when animal control might receive a call out, they've finished that job, they don't have the ability to currently sign it off due to lack of reception, so it might be done when they get back to the office, or if they're to pull over on the side of the road when they're coming home, but normally it's going to come back to the office. We've been speaking with Luke, who's a part of the, I do forget his title, sorry. Information Services, and then developing something where we can, in real time, have a tablet or laptop, and that it can be logged that it's completed, and then when you come back into reception or to the council building, it can go back to that time, because we don't have the ability to come into the office and then sign it off and back time it, if that makes sense. If you do the job at 10:30 and get back at 11:30, you can't say it was completed at 10:30. Right. So there's issues there as well. But moving on to the other part is that things weren't getting signed off straight away. So there's a backlog where they go out, do all their jobs, etc. It might be even a day later, then everything gets signed off. So something might get signed off within half an hour of it being done, meeting the timeline. Other stuff might be done within that half hour of the timeline, but it's not signed off. Okay. So that was more of a staffing.
So it's a process thing.
Yes,
correct. A better process in regards with, getting them recorded in a timely manner. Yes. Right. Okay. Councillor Ash, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Just wondering, does this report also then get fed through to the assets meeting as well? Obviously, there's stuff in there that's pertinent to the infrastructure, and wondering how this report then becomes part of the delivery. One, for instance, it may be the pipes and not achieved, average being 42% loss from the retic system. So bottom line, does this get fed through to the assets meeting, and what is the process for this then being picked up and becoming an action?
Sorry, before you answer that, in reading the report on page 75, that last paragraph says, when a performance measure is not achieved, and as it is within council's control, it becomes a focus area for improvement. So I guess that would go to the appropriate department to find better ways of being able to improve on that not achieved area. And sorry, is that the correct process?
Yeah, that'd be correct. In terms of it going to Assets Infrastructure Committee meeting, I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Again, because it's the 12-month statement of service performance, that's why it sort of comes to a finance and performance committee meeting. That's probably not for me to comment on whether or not it should go to other committees.
No, and I think this is the performance committee, so it's part of our job is to receive these reports. Any learnings from these reports would be sent to the appropriate committee or part of the organisation to deal with, but I wouldn't expect this full report to go and be reassessed through another committee.
Yeah, that'd be correct. I mean, there's parts of the statement of service performance that pertain to essentially all the committees. So would we end up there, finance, performance, council, policy, planning, assets, infrastructure. So that is why, like you said, it's a performance document. So here, hence it comes to the performance committee.
It's also retrospective.
Just further to that, thank you, and thanks for that. No, that's what I expected. So we can look forward to seeing programs developed to address some of these other things. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah, look, we've had this report provided to us, I think it was the 3 quarterly report, and we've seen that there are issues with achieves and not achieves, and first reading of this report to see those numbers of fully achieved, partly achieved and not achieved, you might be alarmed in reading that, but understanding the background behind the reasons why there are some not achieves there is important, and there's a process in place to deal with better reporting and better measuring, and we can be assured of that. And I think that's the second part of this report. You will have all received by email a new dashboard, and perhaps I could hand over to Ms. Gordon to discuss the new reporting format going forward.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you'll all remember as part of the long-term plan, we had discussions about our statement of service performance, and we raised with you where there were areas that we could never achieve, and for reasons George has outlined and for reasons that were shared at that workshop, that some of these measures were just never going to be achievable, like a dog call out in Tybee to respond within an hour or whatever it was, for our dog control staff coming from Wanganui, etc. You just can't meet that time frame. So we took the opportunity to look at those. The executive team presented you with achievable, measurable results, and that's what you'll receive going forward. We also said that there needed to be an improvement about the way that we showed these, where this current report style has been in place for a number of years and it can be slightly hard to read. So we've come up with this dashboard approach where information will be taken directly from our Magic system and populated in the dashboard approach that you've seen over the last couple of days. And where that's possible, that information is provided from our system. And Luke and the team have worked hard on that. Some of the measures still require other information that will be given to you, and that'll be provided in a format that's easy to read as well going forward.
Right, thank you. Yeah, that's certainly the new reporting format. Looks good. It's easy to read, and we look forward to the progress throughout the next 12 months. Is there any questions from the committee in regards with these new formats that you've seen sent out then?
Through you, Chair, I just wonder how we communicate that. With regards to this obviously it's a public meeting, it's a public document, and you're right, it doesn't. On the essence of without the knowledge that we have as council sitting around to break down where some of these not achieves are, how do we translate this to next delivery of communicating it out what we're doing, because it all falls part of our RFF system updates and all those sorts of things, and we have these conversations here, but it sits outside of these rooms. No one knows what we're doing. All they do is see a document like this. So I'm just wondering if there's got to be a communication to it that somehow, or it may be way too early to have that at this stage, but I think we should be telling people what we're doing somehow and communicating these things.
Yeah, fully agree. And I think this type of stuff, when we do receive it as a report, is probably quite small and succinct, which we could possibly have available on the website when it does get reported. It is what it is. This is how we're achieving, and if it can be highlighted in the website, when it does get reported, rather than being included just in a report and difficult to go and track back with that.
Yeah, it just sits to me that we're all nodding our heads and going, yep, we can see where there's some failings and some corrections, but how are we telling how are we portraying that to the wider community that this is some of the things that we are focusing on within the organisation and what we're trying to do to improve, as it is a performance measure.
Well, whether some wording can be provided for the first time, this is put in on the website, and the reasons why we've changed from one reporting structure to this reporting structure. I mean, we understand it, but some wording put around that. Perhaps I'm not sure whether that's suitable to do or able to be done, and that helps deal with a better understanding of anyone reading the report why it's changed.
I'd be happy to have an undertaking as an action that from the recommendation that we have the dashboard online, and I'll just say that the dashboard online and easily accessible to the public.
Yes, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Dave, sorry.
Yeah, I think it ties in with what you're looking to do with regards to your happy or not statements and other things, and I think we need to, it's all part of the whole package.
Yeah.
I'll just provide one further comment on the dashboard, is that it's still at essentially a draft stage. So Luke, we're sort of developing what we'd like to gather before Luke does a whole heap of the background work with the code and that stuff. So it's placeholder data, and there's still quite a lot of work to do in the background. So we don't want to do unnecessary work first and then feedback is, oh, we don't think we actually need to gather the data in this way, and he spent many hours doing it. So yeah, again, just placeholder data, and there's still quite a bit of work in the background to be done on this.
Yeah.
But
So if it was a quarterly report, is it?
Monthly.
6 monthly report. So by the time this report comes out for its first 6 months, we'll have a lot of that fine tuning dealt with, I would guess. Yeah. Okay.
But it is a case of working with ELT and elected members to get the stuff we want to be reporting on, to make sure it's that meaningful information.
Councillor Dalgety, you had your hand raised.
Just a comment, like, you know, obviously there's, as we've discussed, there's a lot not quite reaching the levels that we want to for various reasons. So I would like to see the key focus areas. So the top 10 that we're focusing on at this time, just to cement in my mind where those areas are. Yeah.
Okay. I'm probably looking at staff to see whether that's a doable action.
I suppose the comment is that this is the way that we previously reported on this. And it is looking backwards. It's reporting on actual results for the last 3 years. And like we said at the beginning, it won't be in this current format going forward. Some of the areas that are not achieved, we're never going to be able to be achieved, I suppose is the only way to put it. We can have a look at what areas are there and are able to be addressed, I suppose, but it's not going to be every one of these where it was a not achieved that we're going to bring back a program about how we're going to achieve it, because some of them just are not able to be achieved. That's why we've changed it going forward, so that we don't end up in this scenario again.
Yeah, and I guess if there's any improvements taken out of the new reporting format, they will show up in the respective reports to the respective committees. So it might end up, some of it might end up under assets and infrastructure, some might end up in policy and planning, some might end up under finance or audit and risk. So yeah, I'm not sure how you tie that all into one. It might be challenging to tie into one report.
The other thing to remember is we have built in a review of this now. If a measure drops off, like the rangatike.com website that for the last 2 years we haven't been able to get visitor numbers on. If that happens, we're going to review that as part of the annual plan, so it actually gets removed, so it's not just sitting there as a not achieved for the next 3 years. So we'll make sure that review process happens with councillors and the exec team prior to an annual plan.
Okay, thank you. Peter, you had a comment.
I would just say I would be happy to take an undertaking. On page 75, and to Councillor Dalgetty's question, it does say that where it's not achieved and it's in our control, it becomes a focus area for improvement. I would anticipate that as a Finance Performance Committee, we would come back to you and say these are the areas we've identified that will require improvement, and outline what they are. I don't think we'll be doing a top 10 as such, but we can provide the areas that this pledge makes on page 75.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Dalgetty?
Brilliant. Thank you.
Right. All right. Any further questions on the statement of service and performance? No. Could I have someone move that the report 12-month statement of service and performance be received. Councillor Ash, seconded by Councillor Duncan. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, thank you. Now, 9.6 annual residence survey. Now, we have the report in front of us, and you've all had an opportunity to read through the report. And looking at this, there's some areas within the report that I think needs a full council coverage, and I think the finance to have it received at the Finance and Performance Committee, we can receive it here, but I'd like to suggest that we move it forward. There will be some comment provided in the Chief Executive's report at Council today, but if we can have this report provided to a future Council meeting, and then discussion take place under full council about the outcomes of the resident survey, the annual resident survey. I think we need a bit more time to discuss it, and the time allocation that we've got left today will be challenging to get any meaningful discussion on it. So there will be comment provided, as I said, under the Chief Executive's report at full council today, but the recommendation I think from this committee would be that this full report goes to the next council meeting, which would be, when's the next council meeting after today?
Well, I think we could receive your intention today,
yep,
and then set it for probably.
Just so if we just say a future council meeting, and it would obviously feed into that next
so
one.
Does that mean you wish us to, you might choose to not receive the report?
Yeah, whatever the appropriate action is. So I mean,
I think
either way, yeah.
I think. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll ask for comment from His Worship to see if we can move ahead.
We've had the chance to discuss this. I agree that in hindsight, I probably should have said take it to full council to start with. At that stage, I hadn't read all of the report. There's certainly a timing issue for today. I think it's appropriate to receive it at this and then refer it to full council.
Yeah.
So the motion would be to receive and then refer it to full council for consideration.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, in the interest of time, so if we can have that recommendation put, Your Worship, are you prepared to put that motion?
Yes, absolutely. And in speaking to it, it's not only about time today. I think there's possibly a transparency issue in this. Some of the report is sobering reading, and let's be open about having that discussion.
Yeah. So
happy to second.
That recommendation is moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Is there any further discussion on this? Councillor Duncan.
Sorry, so this report's going to go to full council. At that point, is that where the discussion is going to be held, or are we going to have a workshop on this as well?
Correct. No, the discussion will be held at full council in regards with what the report contains. And as we said, the time involved today, we just haven't got the time allocation today to deal with it. And I think it should receive full council input into it rather than just the Finance and Performance Committee. So that's the reason for shifting it out as well. But there will be some commentary provided at today's council meeting through the Chief Executive's report by the Chief Executive on this report.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll put that motion or recommendation to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. All right, thank you very much. And that brings our meeting to a close. Oh, sorry, yes, we didn't deal with that. So we'll go back to item 5 on the agenda, where we didn't confirm the previous minutes due to a query on when Councillor Hero left the meeting. That time has been shifted. Ash, are you able to provide? Oh, sorry, it's online. Okay, so The amendment says, page 10, councillor Hira is noted as leaving at 11:27 a.m, but she is then recorded as subsequently moving or carrying several recommendations. The place of entry of this comment, which is councillor Hira's departure, should be altered to sit immediately below resolution 21/FPE/037 within the minutes document, and that deals with when councillor Hira actually left the meeting and her input into seconding and moving those motions prior. So that will be the amendment. Councillor Carter, you raised that, so are you happy with that?
I'm happy to accept the minutes with the amendment made.
Okay, so you're moving the reception of the minutes, councillor Carter, seconded by myself as chair. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, I think that's the last item to deal with on the agenda, so thank you all very much for your attendance.
Councillor's back online.
I'll call this meeting closed as at 12:05, and if councillors